Well, this is Dr. Stan back here at Radio Liberty, coming to you from the hills overlooking beautiful and picturesque Monterey Bay, and bringing you the news behind the news, the story behind the story, hoping to convince you that reality is usually scoffed at, that illusion is usually king. But in the battle for the survival of Christian civilization, it's going to be reality and not illusion or delusion that's going to determine what the future will bring. And I need to remind you the views expressed here are not necessarily those of the owners, management, staff, sponsors, or supporters of the station you're listening to. They happen to be my views, and for this next hour, they're going to be the views of our good friend Lindsey Williams, who we've known going back 20 years or more. But basically, Lindsey's a frequent guest here at Radio Liberty. And he is certainly going to be talking this evening about some of the things that we share in common. Hi, Lindsey. How are we doing?
Good evening, Dr. Stan, and thank you so very much for allowing me the privilege to be on Radio Liberty tonight.
Well, I just want to clarify an issue. I want to make sure I'm not quoting you out of context, but we had talked about your contact with the current Mr. X, who, of course, is before Mr. X was Ken Fromm. He's passed away, but the current Mr. X had worked with him, and I'd talked to him. Suddenly, some years ago, I'm probably one of the few people who know who he is, but he has a close associations with what I call the Brotherhood, is the ruling elite, the people who control America and make mockery of our electoral process. But I asked you, certainly, if you talk to him about certainly the danger of an electromagnetic pulse attack, or have you ever talked to him about that? And what did he say when you did mention this issue to him?
I have never had them talk about that issue. I never had Mr. Fromm to mention it. And likewise, the present Mr. X, whom you know and have talked with on the phone, he has never mentioned anything about electro pulse.
Right. When next time you talk to him, would you ask him what his thoughts are on that? Because I was mistaken. I thought that he had said he wasn't concerned about it, or that nobody was concerned. Ask him if certainly the elite realize the implications. You see, basically, an EMP attack, one bomb, could destroy the infrastructure of this country. Well, I cannot believe that the elite who run this country, who have tremendous investments here, would want to destroy this, because they need our they need our military power to consolidate their control of the world. I can't believe that they would leave us susceptible to this. I really would like to know his impression. If you have a chance, please, next time you talk to him, will you ask him that for me?
Dr. Stan, I definitely will ask him. In fact, I will give him a call in the next day or two and ask him that very question. And I agree with you. They definitely should know something. Maybe he just hasn't been willing to answer me, but I will definitely ask. You know, many years ago, Dr. Stan, you asked me a question, and I went to them as a direct result of your question. And the question was, are we going to have war with Iran? And I shall never forget the response that went on for nearly 3 years. The first time you asked me that question, Mr. Fromm was still alive. And I went to him and asked him, and he said, he just chuckled on the phone and said, no, chaplain, there's not going to be any conflict with Iran for the next at least 2 years. And I came back and I said, Dr. Stan, I hope you're willing to believe this, even though our Army, our Navy, our Air Force, everybody's over there, right ready for an attack on Iran or something to happen in the Middle East. And I said, Dr. Stan, it's not going to take place. I'm glad you believed me, because we've gone by now for 3 years. And I went back to the present Mr. X, and asked him likewise the same question. And he said, no, chaplain, there's not going to be any conflict with Iran. And we've gone by now for 3 years' time. And these people have it planned in advance. They know exactly what they're doing. So, yes, I will be more than happy to go with it. Any time that you have a question like this, I'm more than happy to at least ask, Dr. Stan.
Well, I remember very well, of course, when you called me back and said there was not going to be a war with Iran for a couple, 2.5 years or more. I sort of got the inference that, now this was many years ago when Mr. Fromm was alive and you talked to him, that there might be a war or something at the end of that time. Hang on, we're going to be back in just a moment with Lindsey Williams. Well, go ahead, Lindsey. But my impression was that what Ken Fromm was saying, and this was many years ago, was not going to be for now, but maybe in the future. Was that the impression you got at the time?
He never said that it would never happen. And later on, the present Mr. X, whose name we can't give out because he's retired and in his 70s, and you know who he is, he has indicated to me that they will allow Iran to develop their nuclear facilities, and that there probably would not be any conflict with them anytime soon. And this wasn't too long ago that this was intimated to me. Then we came around to North Korea, and everybody thought we were going to have a conflict with North Korea. And I asked a question about North Korea one time, didn't get any answer, none whatsoever. So I kind of gathered that possibly North Korea was likewise a saber-rattling event. And then, just a matter of days ago, I again was on the phone with one of the elite friends. And by the way, one has put me in touch with the other now. And I actually have two people out there that I can contact. Now that Mr. Fromm's gone, I still have two, even though there was only one just after he died. And one of them said to me some things here just days ago that I was so startled until I actually contacted the other gentleman whom you know. And I asked him, by way of email, I said, is what I just heard true? And his response was, by email, I still have it right here in my email box. I've saved it because in case anyone ever had any doubt. He said, yes, everything that you have heard is true. And then that's when I called you, Dr. Stan, because I promised back about 6 months ago when I produced the DVD series, The Next 4 Years and How to Survive the Next 4 Years, I promised in that DVD that any time that I was given something that I felt was so significant that it would affect your dinner table and your household, that I would come back on the air, I would tell people what I heard, and that I would produce another DVD, whether it be once a week, once a month, once every 6 months, once a year. I said, whenever it happens, I will. So, I'd like to express, if I can tonight, what was said in the course of that conversation and how I contacted the other person and they verified it. The elite right now are
hold that thought, Lindsey, because we want to bring all of our stations back on board, and I want all of our listeners to hear what you have to say. So we'll just wait for about 10 seconds. All the stations will be back with us. And then, of course, I want you to tell our audience exactly what your elite friend has let us in on. Go ahead. Well, this is Dr. Stan, and certainly it was somewhere 2.5, 3 years ago when Ken Fromm was still living. And certainly when I'd asked Lindsey to ask him, and I knew who this gentleman was, but certainly I was sworn to secrecy, and I've always abided by that. And basically I asked Lindsey to call Ken Fromm and ask him. Now, you have to understand that he had been president of the SARCO and then, of course, on the board of Exxon, and these are people very, very close to what I call the Brotherhood of Darkness. He wasn't at the top echelon, but he's certainly very close to these people. And the information he gave Lindsey through the years was excellent. And so I asked certainly Lindsey to find out, was there going to be a war with Iran? We're talking about, I think, 2008. Gee, that's actually close to 5 years ago. But anyway, Ken Fromm said no at the time, but there's not going to be anything for the next at least 2.5 to 3 years. The interest was that perhaps at the end of that time, something would happen. Well, of course, nothing has happened as yet, although there's an awful lot of saber rattling, and certainly, then, of course, I asked certainly Lindsey to contact the new Mr. X. Now, Ken Fromm is dead, and the new Mr. X said, no, there's not going to be a problem as far as Iran, at least not for the foreseeable future. And then, just a few days ago, Lindsey, you pick up the story.
Well, Dr. Stan, many new people, I'm sure, out there in your audience tonight, so very quickly. Many years ago, I was actually invited to be the chaplain to the elite of the world, and for 3 years' time, I lived with the people that you only hear about but never get to meet. Top oil company officials, people that you would know in the World Bank, the IMF. It was by the providence of God. I'd been the pastor of a church for 12 years prior to that and a missionary in Alaska for a short time. and I was actually invited to be their chaplain on the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline. I've kept in touch with those people over the past 38 years, and every time someone would give me information, if I thought it was significant, I would give Dr. Stan a call. And he's been gracious enough to allow me to tell these things, even though sometimes they are very outlandish sounding, but yet never once in 38 years has it ever failed, because when they discuss something behind closed doors, it happens. Now, I had such an experience just a matter of days ago, and my elite friend told me what's going to happen in the near future. That's what I want to give you tonight. I hope you have pencils and paper. The elite are working toward a date for the collapse of all currencies. Now, they have been thinking about this for a long time. In fact, some of you will remember that about 2 years ago, they actually gave me the formula, and I put it in a DVD series that I did at the time, and I said that they were going to use the derivative market in order to collapse all the currencies of the world when they finally decided to bring this time about. Well, they are actually working toward or working on, they haven't given me the date yet, but they're working toward a date for the collapse of all currencies. I have been fairly well assured, Dr. Stan, that I will know the date before it happens. It may be a week or two, it may be a few months, but I promise you, whenever I do know the date, I will contact you and everyone out there in the listening audience so that you can take all final measures as quickly as possible. Now, just recently you've had something that happened that's very significant. It was Cyprus. It is an example of something that they are doing. This was planned a long time in advance. Cyprus did not happen by chance. It was something that they did intentionally. But when I was told by the Mr. X that you know, Dr. Stan, why Cyprus took place, I was dumbfounded beyond words, because no news media has told this real story. It wasn't the little person in Cyprus that they were going to take 9% out of their checking account right across the board. That was not the issue. The issue in Cyprus was, and I'm going to use the exact words that were given to me, they wanted to disannul wealth. Now, let me try to explain which wealthy people we're talking about. Cyprus was a money laundering center for the super wealthy of Russia, many of the super wealthy of Europe, a lot of drug lords, weapon smugglers, and terrorists. And for years, they have laundered their money through Cyprus. Now, let me try to help you, if I can, to understand the classifications. At the very top, way up here, if you could reach up a ways, way up at the top would be the elite, as I call them, as Dr. Stan refers to them as the Brotherhood of Darkness. Now, under them are people who are not part of the elite, but they're super wealthy. And then there's a wealthy group. And then there's the upper middle class. There were very wealthy Russians and Europeans and terrorists and weapons and drug lords that had literally billions, not millions, but billions of dollars in Cyprus. And the elite, the very top, the New World Order group, the Brotherhood of Darkness, they wanted to disannul the wealth of the super wealthy and the wealthy that were laundering their money in Cyprus. And when I was told this, I was dumbfounded. Now, in America, for instance, we have the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and it will guarantee funds that you have in the bank over a certain amount. Under a certain amount. Over that, if the bank happens to go insolvent, you've lost what you've got. Now, this was very true in Cyprus. Over a certain amount, people lost everything. I want to give you the figure. The super wealthy Russians, who are not a part of the elite, Europeans, and drug lords and terrorists, actually lost $10 billion in Cyprus, and that's what they were after. They wanted to wipe them out. Now, they are going to do in other countries exactly what they've done in Cyprus, not pull money out of the bank account, but they will do it in a little different manner. And I have been told to watch very carefully because similar events to Cyprus are planned for other nations in the near future. Now, let's take, for instance, that super wealthy Russian who had, let's say, $5 million in Cyprus stashed away, laundering it. And all of a sudden, he's lost it. I mean, he lost every bit of it. Because the smaller groups, the people who had less in the bank, they lost a little bit. This man lost everything because over a certain amount, they didn't guarantee it. Now, what does that super wealthy Russian have to do now in order to continue to operate his business in Russia? He's going to have to go and borrow money from the banks of the elite in order to be able to continue to operate, because they have wiped out his working funds. Are you beginning to see now what the elite are doing in order to be able to bring in the New World Order? I have said it so many times over the past 2 years since they told me forced debt creation. They want every human being on the face of the earth. They want even the super wealthy wiped out so that they can get them into a debt situation. Forced debt was the words that I was actually given. Watch out for a number of countries. Watch out for New Zealand. Yes, they have actually discussed New Zealand, Japan, and the possibility of Australia. And I am very concerned about the Cayman Islands and Dubai. If any of you, I'm quite sure you're like I am, you don't have enough money to put over there at all. But if you have any there, you better be very, very careful, because there are some danger points there. They are going to try some of these things over again. I was on a radio show the other day, and the individual from Canada called in. And they said, is Canada going to be exempt from this? And I said, positively not. Okay, are you ready? You have your pencil and paper handy. I want to give you the page number and tell you what just happened in Canada. In the budget that was just adopted by Canada from 2013, go to page 144 and 145. You'll find this on the internet. I hope that you will go and prove what I'm saying right now. And on page 144 and 145 is what they call in the budget, I'm going to quote the exact words, Economic Action Plan 2013. And right written into the Canadian budget that was just accepted the other day, the Canadian government promises to use Canadian, folks, please catch this. We may even have some bill going through Washington trying to do this, and they'll hide it as long as they can. Canadians, they can take the deposits out of their accounts if they sense, I'm going to use again the exact words on page 144 and 145 of the budget, systematically important banks. In other words, if those major banks fail, Canada now, right in their budget, has the right to go into the account of that Canadian and withdraw their money exactly like they did in Cyprus, and the elite have already gotten it written into law in the budget of Canada for 2013. Now, you're going to see more and more of this around the world. Now, please, this next is so important, I don't really know how to even express it for the importance of it, but I'm going to try my best to help you understand. Just recently, when I was on the phone with my elite friend, he said, Chaplain, I want you to go to a certain place. And he said, you will find there what is about to happen. I'm saying this slowly because I want you to catch it. And I'm going to tell you where to find it, and you can go on the internet and prove everything I'm saying after the program tonight. When I lived with the elite of the world, one of the first things I learned with them during that 3 years of sitting across the dinner table from them and living in the same dorms with them at Prudhoe Bay was that they do have a code of ethics. Now, I know this sounds strange, and Dr. Stan, you've heard me say this before. They do have a code of ethics. It's not the code of ethics of the Bible. It's not the code of ethics of Dr. Stan or Lindsey Williams, but they have a code of ethics, and one of the facets of their code of ethics is they must tell you everything they're going to do before they do it. They just did it. They did it in 2 places, and I'm going to give you both of the places and the exact dates where you can go on the internet and read it
Hold that thought. Hold the thought. We'll be back in a moment. Well, Lindsey, go right ahead.
I'm actually going to point out the buzzwords to you because over these 38 years, in the association I've had with some of these people, I have learned to tune my ear to listen to what they're saying. And when he said to me on the phone the other day, go to this particular place and you will find exactly what's about to happen. And when I read it, as I'm about to give it to you, you will be able to pick out the buzzwords. I'll pick them out for you. And then you go back and read this for yourself. Now, are you ready with pencils? Here we go. April the 2nd, 2013. It's the New York Times. All you have to do is just Google this and you'll find it for yourself. You remember that David Stockman was the budget director for President Reagan, very prominent man in the financial world, and David Stockman has just written a book. And in it are buzzwords. And the New York Times highlighted these. You see, the elite will use, maybe they'll tell you what they're going to do from a movie. Yes, oftentimes they do. They'll use a movie to tell you what they're going to do. They might use a news article or a book. They might even use something on the national liberal media to tell you, and they'll say it one time, and then later, after the elite have done what they're going to do, they'll go back and say, oh, I told you so, why didn't you listen? Now, here it is. April the 2nd, 2013, New York Times. I'm going to quote it exactly as it was. Stockman wrote that the Fed's quantitative easing policies following the credit crisis have flooded stock markets with cash even while the Main Street economy remains weak. The combination, he wrote, is unsustainable. Now, unsustainable is a buzzword. You have heard other people in Congress use it recently. This is not David Stockman. This is not the first time he's used that word. Then I want to point out other buzzwords exactly as he quoted them. Number one, he says that QE1, QE2, QE3 cannot be sustained. He said it's coming to an end. In other words, that's what unsustainable means.
Basically, for our listeners, that is quantitative easing 1, 2, and 3. Quantitative easing is something where they just start pouring money into our economy. They've done this repeatedly since 2008. And we're in quantitative easing 3 now, where they're just creating all this money and investing it in Treasury bonds, $5 billion a month, and then $40 billion a month in additional. They're buying up mortgage bonds. They're just creating this money, and so they investing this, they're pouring $1 trillion into our economy. They're just pouring it in to try to stimulate the economy to keep the whole thing from collapse. Would that be a fair statement, Lindsey?
That is exactly right, Dr. Stan. You have surmised it correctly. Now, the currencies of the world and the banks of the world, not just America, but the world, should have collapsed during the last few months of President Bush's administration. They did not let it happen. They didn't let it happen for a reason. At the time, I didn't know why. Later, Mr. X, whom you know, had told me why they didn't let it collapse. They didn't let it collapse because they wanted to create massive debt before they used the derivative market to collapse the currencies of the world. Now, when you see
hold that thought. We're going to be back here in just a moment with Lindsey Williams. Lindsey, would you mind making that point again, certainly about how they're not using the derivative market because, but they're going to eventually collapse the economies of the world. Make that point one more time for our listeners.
And thank you, Dr. Stan, for letting me say something twice because it's so vitally important. During the last few months of the administration of President Bush, our former president before our present president, the banks and the currency systems of the world should have collapsed. But they went before Congress and they said, it's going to collapse. You've got to do something. You have no choice. You must bring in quantitative easing 1. And they did. They literally gave away trillions of dollars to keep the system from collapsing, yet it was intentional. It had already been planned. They did not want the system to collapse yet because they want to create massive debt like this world cannot imagine of. They want America to be so in debt. They want every city, every state, every county. They want every individual in America to be so in debt. They want every Russian. They want every Chinese. They want such massive debt, and they just created it through Cyprus with super wealthy Russians, and then it'll be one nation after the other. People, you have never seen the massive debt that's going to be created before. And this is all planned. They will know the date when they're going to do it, when they allow the derivative market to collapse every currency in the world all at the same time. Canada isn't going to be exempt. European Union is not going to be exempt. Neither is China, nor Russia, nor Japan. When they get ready to take that 1 quadrillion that's in the derivative market and collapse the derivative market, all of them will go together. Now, I want to give you the buzzwords of David Stockman right in the New York Times. I was told to go there and read it. I went there and printed it out, and the buzzwords were so obvious to me. I want to read you the next group of buzzwords, and this is his exact quote out of the New York Times, which you'll find it when you go back there for April the 2nd, 2013. Here it is. When it burst, there will be no new round of bailout like the ones the banks got in 2008. Quantitative easing 1. Are you catching the words? I hope you got them. The buzzwords are when it burst. He does not say if. He doesn't say maybe. He doesn't say possibly. He said when it burst. Folks, it's not going to be long. The American dollar is on its way out. You are going to see it collapse. You're going to lose your purchasing power, and inflation is going to get greater and greater. And he said, David Stockman has given the buzzwords of the elite right here. When it bursts, there will not be another QE2, another quantitative easing 3. There will be none of this, and I want to read you exactly what he says is going to happen. Now, everybody asks me, what is the next collapse going to be like? I'm going to read it to you word for word. There's no more doubting. You can never say again that they didn't tell you before they did it. I'm reading it. Here goes. Instead, America will descend into an era of zero-sum austerity and violent political conflict, extinguishing even today's feeble remnants of economic growth. Now, folks, these are buzzwords. This is a sentence telling you exactly what they're going to do. Now, if you don't take warning, it's your own fault. You must listen to what these people are telling. They said to me, my elite friend, chaplain, go here, and you will find what is about to take place. They are warning.
Lindsey, did they recommend that you read that article by David Stockman?
Yes.
Okay.
They told me to go to that date in the New York Times.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
And read this particular article right here. And I went and printed it out. And I am telling you this. First of all, they said it's unsustainable. And then he said, when it's burst. Wait, you can't be any plainer than this. And then he tells you what's going to happen when it does burst. But, folks, this is exactly what they want. Someone called in on a radio show that I was on the other day, and they said, Chaplain, why would the elite destroy their own country? I have oftentimes said most of the elite, all of the elite that I knew, and most of them that I know of, live in the United States of America. And someone said, why would they destroy their own country? I said, you don't understand the mindset of the elite. They aren't destroying their own country. They are taking over their own country. The name of the game is control, and what they want to do is collapse the dollar, get you to the point you'll be willing to give up your Constitution, and at that point when you're begging and your children are crying for food, they'll step in and say, we have the answer. We have a new currency. We have a new one-world system. All you have to do is accept it, and at that point, the new world order and the elite will begin to bring this country and the world back out of the mess it's in under their auspices, and every bit of this...
Hold that thought. Hold the thought. Well, Dr. Stan, here our guest is Lindsey Williams, and basically it's Lindsey's contention, based upon what he's been told by people in the elite, by several of them, that they are going to certainly get everybody, government, federal government, state government, local government, individuals in as much debt as they can, and simply then collapse our currency. But if they collapse the currency, Lindsey, wouldn't they, certainly the people then, of course, be able to get out of debt? Certainly we had inflation. You could pay back your debt with very little money. So basically this would certainly really, of course, collapse the lenders. How do you actually correlate this all together?
You know, I wish I knew the final game plan is exactly how they plan to do such things as your house mortgage, your automobile mortgage, maybe your boat, or whatever you may have. I've often wondered exactly how they will handle all of this. The only thing I know is what David Stockman said, and to the best that I can surmise, extinguishing even today's feeble remnants of economic growth. Exactly how they'll do it, I've not been told. If I am ever, I will give it to you just as I'm giving you what I am tonight. But keep something in mind. In 1929 through 1933, at the time of the Great Depression, there were many people who made great fortunes. And even though there was a financial collapse and the banks were closed, these people knew in advance, and they were willing to believe what they were hearing from whoever they might have heard it from back then. They took the proper action, and they never stood in a soup line. You can do the same thing today. What I'm telling you now, what David Stockman just told you, and the next place I was told to go, which I'm about to give you, and I'll give you the date, I'll give you the person, and when it was said, and you can go and look it up on the web for yourself. It's right there. If you will believe these things, these buzzwords that the elite have already given you, there is no reason for you to lose sleep at night. There's no reason to look for black helicopters. There is positively no reason for you to worry. Do you know that worry shuts your brain down? You cannot allow yourself to fall into that trap. They want you to be so disturbed over all of this that you will worry to the point of not being able to make right decisions. You cannot allow yourself to do that. Take action according to the fact that you still have a dollar that's strong enough you can go do some things with it, and take advantage of the opportunities of a window that is open right now, so that when it actually happens, you'll be protected and your family will be protected. Now, let me give you the next.
Okay, fine. You're going to tell us what people should be doing then. Go right ahead.
Yes. This, I was told to go here, and I would find again what is in the works that's about to take place. It was April the 5th of 2013. It was said by our Vice President, Mr. Joe Biden. He was speaking that day at the Export-Import Bank Conference. And Mr. Biden said, I will quote it as they gave it in the article, Vice President Joe Biden called for the creation of a new world order. Well, that's nothing new. I mean, you and I have heard that since Daddy Bush was around years ago. It's the next three expressions that Mr. Biden used that are the buzzwords you have never heard before, and I have never heard them before either. I am quite sure that he was ordered to put these in his speech, and when you go and actually view his speech, which is on YouTube, please now, you can view this. You do not have to take the word of Lindsey Williams. Please take the word of my elite friend who gave it to me, because he's trying to protect my family. And he knew listen, some of the people that I knew back 38 years ago are today in their 70s and 80s. They have children that are out in the business world. And believe it or not, some of them are concerned enough that they would kind of like to get this out. So, all right, I'm going to use the expressions. I'll point out the buzzwords. Mr. Biden said, first of all, New World Order. Then he said, I am calling for a new financial institutions. Oh, my goodness. I hope you got those three words and you'll write them down. New financial institutions. What is a bank? A bank is an institution. And what is he calling for? He's calling for a new financial institution. Now, what did David Stockman say? David Stockman says there's not going to be another QE 1, 2, or 3. He said they'll not do it anymore. They'll let the banks fail. Do you realize whenever and they are going to fail. I have already been told, the expression was used to me, chaplain, any money you've got in the bank, if you can't afford to lose it, you better get it out. Now, I've already been told that. And I'm warning you right now. He says, we want new financial institutions. They'll let the banks fail under the auspices of the Federal Reserve, which is not an agency of the federal government any more than Federal Express. They will bring in a whole new financial system. Do you realize that this man, Joe Biden, placed his hand on the Bible and pledged an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, which says that Congress shall make gold and silver? Do you realize that this man outright misrepresented the truth? I want to give you his second expression. He said, I am calling for updated global rules. When you hear his speech, you are going to be dumbfounded at what this man's updated global rules. What is that? That's taking away your Constitution. What is the rule of order in America? What is the supreme law of the land? The Constitution of this United States. What do they want? He put his hand on the Bible and said, I'll uphold it. And right here, he has the audacity to say, in this speech on April the 5th of 2013, updated global rules. We want to do away with the Constitution. We want a one-world charter. We want to bring in a global rule. And
did he really say they want to do away with the Constitution as such, or did he just say we want global rule?
He said, I want updated global rules. And it's very easy to read there between the lines. He wants new rules. And the rule of order right now is our Constitution. I'm not giving it up. And I don't think Dr. Stan or anybody else out there that's a believer in America, I don't think you'll give it up either. They know that they're going to have problems on their hands when they try to pull this off. Now, there's one last expression that he used in that speech. He said, I am calling for the creation of a level playing field. Oh, when I heard this, I could see right through it with what I've heard at other times. They want to bring America down to the level of a third world country. They want to bring third world countries up to the level of where America will be at that point. They want a level playing field. Are you catching the buzzwords? Now, folks, they have warned you. They have already told you in two places. I was told to go to these places and look, and I would find what's about to happen. David Stockman tells you what the end result of this is going to be and what happens after there's not another quantitative easing 1, 2, or 3 put into place. You have right now before you everything that you need in order to prepare your household for the inevitable if you will take action in light of what these people have told you. I promised you back 6 months ago in my last DVD series that any time I heard something that I felt would jeopardize or would be important to your dinner table and your household and your family, I would come and tell you. I got this a few days ago. I had no choice. I contacted Dr. Stan. I immediately went into studio and did a new DVD series. The first ones went out 1 week ago, and it is entitled The New Signs That the Elite Have Just Given Me. I have given you the signs. There are a few more, but we're about to run out of time. And Dr. Stan, what was said by these men and what we're seeing happen to the gold and silver market, by the way, that was intentionally manipulated. They did that. I did not know how far, I didn't know when they were going to take it down. They didn't tell me. When they took it to the bottom, they told me where the bottom was. It has already bottomed out. It's going to start up from this point on. But I was told why they did it and how they did it. They did it by outright total manipulation. Did you notice that all of the commodities sold off at the same time gold and silver did, wheat, corn, everything? And I want to give you the exact words that was given to me by my elite friend. He said, Chaplain, this is the beginning of a crack. Did you catch that? I'm quoting him perfectly. He said, this is the beginning of a crack. Did you know that copper hit a 52-week low? The global economy is so weak right now, Japan has had to manipulate her currency. Russia for the first time in your lifetime and mine, announced a stimulus program last week, similar to our QE1, because they are having problems with their currency. The worldwide economic mess should have caused gold to go up. Instead, gold and silver went down for two reasons. They told me the reason they took gold down was, gold and silver both, was because they wanted to scare the little man out of gold and silver. They want you to get rid of it. Don't you dare do it. It's going to go back through the roof before it's over with. Secondly, by the way, it backfired on them. I was talking to a gold dealer today, and he said, Chaplain, I have never been so busy in all the years I've been in gold and silver business. And he said, that's been over 20 years. It backfired. Secondly, when it got to the bottom, and they told me that it was at the bottom, they bought like wild. Well, literally. The elite were buying at the bottom. Now they're taking it back up again. Every bit of this is done for the purpose of creating massive debt, creating chaos in the financial world, and making a very unstable environment every place that they can, because the human brain doesn't tolerate instability too well. And they want to create every bit of the debt they can, all the instability they can, and then when they're finally ready, they will use the derivative market to bring down the currencies, and at that point, hopefully bring in the New World Order. Dr. Stan, I don't think they're going to succeed. I personally believe that in America, they won't succeed. Now, maybe they'll succeed in other countries. But when I saw what happened with this gun situation, and how the Americans rebelled and bought the gun stores out, you can't even buy ammunition now. I think that they have miscalculated the freedom-loving Americans by the millions and millions that are out there. And I'm not quite so sure that they're going to succeed in America with what they want to do, Dr. Stan.
Well, would you like to get out tell people how they can get in touch with you and get the material and information that you're offering?
The new DVD release, hour and a half long. Only 1 week ago, the first ones were delivered. It's entitled New Signs the Elite Have Just Given Me. Please go, if you will. You can make a phone call. It's toll-free. 1-888-799-6111, or you can go on the web after the program tonight to prophecyclub.com, prophecyclub.com. Or if you'd like to speak with an American operator that doesn't have an accent, please call 1-888-799-6111. Now, Dr. Stan, I have started just recently with the website that a man over in Great Britain set up in my name. It's LindseyWilliams.net, not .com, but .net. Lindsey Williams, Lindsey, Williams.net. And every time I'm getting a bulletin, I try to interpret it if I can and put it on that website. It's free of charge. There's no subscription. You can go there and watch every day if you'd like to. And whenever I post a bulletin, and all the radio programs that I'm on, your program tonight, Dr. Stan, is archived there. And people can go and find out what these elite are telling me. LindseyWilliams.net. If you want to get our new series, New Signs the Elite Have Just Given Me, Dr. Stan.
And basically, they're still, though, suggesting that there's not going to be any sort of a military confrontation with either North Korea or with Iran. Is that the impression you get?
That is the impression I'm getting. Now, I know that many talk show hosts in the last week or two have said, oh, we have big trouble with North Korea. Well, I asked my lead friend about North Korea. He would not even peep. He wouldn't say a word. Now, when they don't say anything, back when I asked about Iran, Mr. Fromm said, no, Chaplain, there's not going to be any conflict for the next 2 to 2.5 years. Well, this time, there was not a word. It led me to believe that we have a wild-eyed radical over there in North Korea that may even be giving them a little problem. And I don't foresee any problems there that are going to affect America in a drastic way. And I don't foresee anything in the very near future in Iran either. I do see that the elite are working towards a financial crisis, and I think this is the thing that people had best watch more careful than anything else, and listen to what they're saying. They've given you the warning, and it's time to take action to protect your house. and you can. If it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. I think it's the best common sense, one word, or I should say one sentence expression that I can give you out of what I've gained from them. As one of them said to me a while back, Chaplain, can you afford to lose what you have in the bank? And I said, no, I can't. He said, well, you better go get it out. If it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. You must get into tangibles. Now, tangibles aren't just gold and silver. And I don't sell gold and silver. You couldn't buy any from me if you tried. A tangible can be a garden in the backyard that the land's paid for. A tangible can be a paid-for roof over your head. You need to get it as quick as you can, so they can't take it away from you when you can't make that payment, when the currency gets in big trouble. A tangible can also be gold and silver, and it is going back up, way up, higher than it ever was before.
And so basically what you are suggesting is that people should get into gold and silver if they can. You're not selling it. You have no benefit from it, from making that recommendation. But you feel that this is important for people, is to get into gold and silver. Are you laying in any supplies, food, water, things of that sort, of vehicles for purifying water in case we get into some sort of a crisis situation in America? Do you foresee this happening?
Yes. In fact, let's take them in order. You can't do without water for 24 hours. You can do without food for 24 hours. You cannot do without water for 24 hours. Give it some consideration. Secondly, you can only do without food for so many days. Now, do you realize what happened in Boston when they locked the city down? Suppose you'd been one of those people that go to the grocery store every day in order to eat dinner that night. Do you realize that for a few days' time you would have gone hungry? They wouldn't let you out of your house, and the grocery stores weren't open. You'd better give some consideration to what you're going to do about your food. Then you must give consideration to how you're going to survive when the dollar does have a problem. You need to be in. Do you realize that there are two states now? The state of Utah and also Arizona is just right on the verge of passing the law that says that any coin that's minted by the United States Mint must be accepted by the grocery store, the hardware store. I am so proud of the state of Arizona, you can't possibly imagine it. Must be accepted and cannot be turned down for payment of debt. This can be a protection for you when it comes down to it. But it must be gold and silver that's minted by the United States Mint. Don't go and buy foreign coins. Buy gold and silver minted by the United States Mint. Make preparations now. You can save yourself major heartache.
Hold that thought. We'll be back in a moment. Lindsey, go right ahead. We've got about 3 minutes to wrap up the program. You go right ahead.
I have been given some things that I should do personally. I'll try to point a few of them out to you in these few moments that we have left. This was actually said to me, Chaplain, why don't you go do this? Number one, get out of paper. They keep on stressing this to me. And get into tangibles, and I stress it to you. Secondly, don't leave your gold and silver in a safety deposit box. They just found it here a few weeks ago. Buried down in the Patriot Act, it states that Homeland Security has a right to go into any safety deposit box in the United States of America and remove gold and silver from that box without any permission from the person. If it's there, you need to get it out. Again, I have been warned personally for my family that debt is a trap. And they said, Chaplain, get out of it. Pay off your credit cards. Pay off the mortgage on your house. Do anything you can, because they said inflation is about to begin in a major way. And when it does, you may not be able to pay off those debts. And I've been warned also about this. I alluded to it early in the program. Have the least amount of money in the bank that you possibly can have and still operate. The rest of it should be intangibles of some sort. Again, you're going to be facing health care as of January the 1st of 2014. It is deadly. It is going to be terrible what's going to happen. You must learn the issues about what you're going to be facing with health care, and you've got to get in your house, in your medicine cabinet, certain things that will enable you to be able to take care of yourself, because you aren't going to be able to get the service, since it has been estimated that approximately 40% of the healthcare professionals in America will be quitting the healthcare industry. The doctors, Dr. Stan, I am hearing of another doctor every few days that is closing their office and saying, we will not be around January the 1st. We're getting a jump on it, and they're getting out. The older ones are retiring. The younger ones aren't going to be going into the medical profession. They're going into other professions. A lot of the men who have been there for a while but are not near retirement are quitting. You need to take into consideration all of these things, but before you do any of this, set your spiritual house in order. You positively must go to the book of Romans in the Bible. Know that you know Jesus Christ is your Savior. Be sure that your house is on a solid rock, because if it's not, the solid rock of Christ Jesus...
Hold that thought. We'll be right back in a moment. Well, this is Dr. Stan, and certainly Lindsey was talking about the preparations we would make, food, water, certainly getting our money out of the bank, our money, or anything we have out of the safety deposit boxes, but stressing the single most important thing we can do is to have a personal relationship with our Lord Jesus Christ, because that is certainly the only thing that will see many of us through what lies ahead, and I agree totally. Lindsey, God bless you. Thanks so much. It was a great program, and we'll look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thank you, Dr. Stan. Good night.
Good night. God bless. Okay, fine. Well, that was Lindsey Williams. If you have a chance and you'd like to get a copy of this talk, of course, you can get that by calling us at 1-800-544-8927. We actually carry a DVD of the talk that Lindsey gave for us, going into the background, certainly over the control, certainly over the oil system and how this all works. And basically, we have a 4-tape set of my interviews with Lindsey. They're available by calling 1-800-544-8927. 1-800-544-8927. I think that 4-tape set's probably available in a CD set as well. So basically, if you'd like to get the material we have with Lindsey, it is available. If you'd like to know about the danger of an EMP attack, you need to get the 4-CD set on the threat of an EMP attack. And then we have a DVD, Ambassador Henry Cooper talking about it. If you haven't read my book, Brotherhood of Darkness, you need to get it. You need to get it out, because it will take you into a spiritual battle that's taking place and the secret societies that control our government today. That's Brotherhood of Darkness, and they're all available by calling 1-800-544-8927. 1-800-544-8927. Of course, we encourage you to go to our website at radioliberty.com. That's radioliberty.com on the Internet, where, of course, you can certainly listen to our radio programs. As you know, we do 5 hours a day, and 4 of those hours are there archived, or you can listen to them live at radioliberty.com. You can certainly watch our DVDs. You can read our newsletters. You can read my treatise on population control. It's the best thing out there, but they've already killed billions of people. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, China has aborted, killed certainly over 400 million unborn children, largely financed and coordinated by International Planned Parenthood, funded with your tax money. Same thing has happened in Russia. They've lost in Russia, they've lost 400,000 children going back to the beginning of the last century. And then, of course, in India, they've lost 400 million unborn children, 400 million unborn children in Russia, in India, and in China. That's 1.2 billion children, and then, of course, we've killed about 56 million children here, and then, of course, we've financed abortion throughout the world. Well over 2 billion children have been murdered, largely with your tax money. We funded this whole program throughout the world, and understand that God is certainly not pleased, and men and women become accomplices to the evils they fail to oppose. Well, you need to read my treatise on the population control agenda. And you may wonder why the incidence of cancer is increasing. Why certainly our treatments for many types of cancer haven't improved over the last 50 years. Certainly we have improved the treatment for certain cancers, but so many we haven't. Why nobody ever talks about the fact that it's certainly that 1 in 3 lesbians is going to get breast carcinoma. Let me repeat that. 1 in 3 lesbians will get breast carcinoma. It's about 1 in 8 women, but 1 in 3 lesbians. And basically, of course, you can check this out on the internet. Why don't we tell the lesbians? Well, because they want to kill off the lesbians, like they want to kill off the homosexuals, where they encourage in their lifestyle. And basically, these are children of God as well, and we need to be ministering to them in love rather than in hatred or in anger. They're being manipulated in this whole so-called homosexual agenda and controversy, just as you and I are being manipulated. Understand we're involved in a spiritual battle for the souls of men and the survival of Christian civilization. So our plea to you is, of course, understand what's going on. We ask you to pray for America. We ask you to pray for revival. We ask you to pray for our leaders and our ministers. But please pray for my ministry, Radio Liberty, for our provision and our protection. And so until tomorrow evening at the same time, Dr. Stan, goodbye, and may the Lord be with you.